Hey guys, welcome back. Let's get started, right? Last week we saw that this was the channel we observed, right? We got the bounce, but the market couldn't get over this trend line, as a result of which on the smaller time frame you can see after we rejected this, boom, we just had a massive sell-off back to the bottom of this trend line, right? If you were attending the Zoom classes, this is something we discussed. So I hope you got some part of the move, right? So now we're in a pretty interesting situation, right? We do have many different scenarios, and one of which is, you can see I have a trend line drawn here, right? You can see that it is holding a support. We are on the 1.618 fib, and even this channel here that we've observed, right? This is holding as support, right? So you can see the market it's like 5 a.m. and 5:30 in Texas right now, and you can see the market is, trying to hold this channel and have a bounce. However, a bounce is expected here, regardless of whether you're a bull or bear, right? If you are extremely bearish, right, you should keep in mind that you will have a bounce, right? Let's to 4267, right? I do think whether you're bullish or bearish, the market is likely to have a bounce. Depending on how much it bounces will kind of determine, the difference between these two counts, right? Here you can see we're looking for a wave 4 bounce, right? Either 4255 or 4264, right? One of these areas is likely to, face rejection, and then you can, if you're bearish, you can short again all the way back to 4135 before it bounces again. And bigger picture, right, it's going down below 4,000. I have like 3,900, right, in this bearish count. So this is the ultra bear count, right? And so far the bears do have control. So you have to keep in mind that if it's a very shallow bounce, this is something that has a high probability of playing out. However, as I mentioned, this is support, right? This trend line is also support here, right? And we are on the 1.618 fib, which is why, this 3-wave count that I've been mentioning can, still play out. This B wave, right? It got rejected at the 0.5 fib. I did expect it to go a little higher, but this was definitely a probability that was going to play out, and it sold off, right? So now we finished the ABC and A, right? So I'm looking for that B wave bounce, right? Again, earnings are likely going to play a huge role in whether this B wave is likely to bounce this high before we have a C wave, to the downside, or whether you have a very shallow bounce, right, at open before we, continue selling off. So those are the difference between the two counts. Depending on how the market bounces, you kind of have to, decide whether you want to be below bear. Alternatively, right, this is not something I'm favoring. A lot of people think that this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I completely disagree. The structure of this does not look like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Maybe they're right, but I give them a 5% probability because the structure definitely seems like an ABC and a bigger ABC, right? The only way that I can see, right, and inverse head and shoulders, you can see this is the shoulder, right, and inverse head and shoulders playing out, right, is in an ABC, not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because the structure is completely different from a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you can see a big impulsive C wave. Again, that would assume Apple, Google, Amazon, all of them have insane earnings, right? And you see this massive C wave to 4.7. There is a gap here, right? This gap down, we would honestly go up to fill that gap at 4.753 before we, come down like an A. This is your B, and we have a massive C wave move down. So this is something that I think is possible. Like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That would assume this is a shallow fifth wave, right? And then you would have this as your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, a 5% probability is possible, right? But I am more of the opinion that we are likely to, see this as an ABC, even if this were to have a bullish impulse of, like, I don't think we're ever going to make a new all-time high this year. So that is kind of what I had got, right? So these are my 3 scenarios. Again, keep your eye on how much the market is going to bounce. If you see a very aggressive bounce at open, then you can consider this a B wave. However, if you see a very shallow bounce and you tend to reject near 4255 or 4265, right, a wave 4 here. Although this is shallow, right, so something to keep in mind is since wave 2 was shallow, this 4th wave can go a lot deeper, so it can definitely even go up to 4,300, right? But if you start to break over 4356, that's kind of when we're in another B wave. So I think 44 450, 4,500 is possible on the B wave bounce. So something to keep in mind, kind of see how much we're going to bounce, right? So that's just my take on the market, right? Let's go through this week's watch list, right? I have both bull and bear on this because as I showed you guys, depending on how much we bounce, right? Either this or this is likely to play out, right? So depending on that, I'm going to show you both bull and bear, right? The first thing I have is for AMD, right? So on AMD, you can see that this trend line, I've mentioned this trend line many times, and right now we have broken under the trend line, but we are pretty much on it. So I'm still, this is like ever since like 90, 92, I've been saying AMD is going to bounce. I am still of the opinion that AMD is going to bounce. You can see that this was an ABC and a WXY and another ABC, right? And you can see that AMD is, very close to the 1.8618 fib, right? It's between the 1.23 and worst case, it'll probably come down all the way to 80, right? Before it finishes this A wave. Again, I am of the opinion that this trend line is likely to hold as the A wave, right? And AMD has a massive B wave incoming, right? I am assuming that it will have good earnings, right? It's probably going to do an ABC, even in the B wave, right? Before it comes back down. So this is what I have for AMD. That's the reason I have called on there, right? But alternatively, I don't want you guys to rule out that if that, as you guys saw, right? If AMD likely plays out if ES, right? If the market plays out the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, AMD by itself is likely to do the same, right? Which is what I kind of want to show you guys here, right? Here you can see this is your 1, 2, this is your 3, 4, it's finishing its 5, right? This is the third wave. It's likely going to have a wave 4 bounce, right? Going to have a wave 4 bounce, which same as the market will likely get rejected before it comes down for that C wave. So that's the reason you can see I have calls over 90, right? Wait for the bounce to start so you can see momentum. And then I have 96, 104 as targets, right? However, if the bounce gets rejected, you can see below 86, I have 80 and 76 as targets on AMD. So both bull and bear, it should offer ample opportunity. You can wait to see what the levels it plays are, right? And then you can kind of take a call on, I'm sorry, this would actually be your wave 3, wave 4, right? Wave 4 probably get rejected at 90, 92 in the bear pattern before it comes down. So it's kind of what I have on AMD bear version, right? Bull, I'm assuming this trend line holds and it's the start of a massive B wave. So that's my take on AMD, bull and bear. The next one is Tesla. So Tesla has not sold off as much as most of the other stocks, right? That's really, really interesting on Tesla, which is why I think whether the market bounces or not, right? I think any bounce on Tesla is going to get shorted lower. So the bear version, right, looks like this. We start to break 960. This is what I have. Below 960, I have 900, 872 as my targets. As you can see, I have much deeper targets, right? I do think it will come to retest 600 ultimately. But this is kind of what I have for the bear version. However, if Tesla wants to use the market momentum to bounce as well, right? I have two versions for that, right? One, this is an A, B, you have that C wave. You can see this is the trend line that's held as downturn resistance. And I think, we're likely to go retest that trend line before we have a 3, 4, 5 sell-off, right? And another version I have for Tesla is that this whole thing, right? This entire thing was your wave 4, right? And we have a wave 5 in a wave C, right? We go to retest previous area of resistance at 1200 before we come back down. So these are kind of your two bull versions. One, retest the trend line at 1130, and the other one, goes up to like 1200 to finish off the B wave. And the third bearish one, which if it breaks 960, is that it's in a massive third wave sell-off. So again, Tesla, same thing. Same as AMD, it offers multiple bull and bear opportunities. So depending on what level it breaks, right, you can kind of take a trade on it. The next one I have is QCOM. I know it has earnings coming up, but I have, as you know, I have multiple versions on QCOM as well, right? The first one is that I have this, right? I have this completing a wave 5 coming lower, right? I think this support at 128 holds, and worst case 125 will hold, right? It probably sells off in the earnings before it has a massive B wave bounce. That's the reason you can see that I have calls only over 108. I want you guys to wait for the reversal before you kind of play the B wave to the upside. Alternatively, right, you can see on QCOM that I do have this, right, it's going to bounce for the wave 4, and same as the market, right? If you see a very shallow bounce with barely any bulls, right, if the market looks weak, then you know it is the wave 4, and then you can buy puts on the bounce, right, and then you can short it, right, puts below. Either you can buy the bounce to short it, or you can wait for it to break 130, and then you can see I have my targets as 112, right? I think you can play level to level, 127, 120, 117, 112, right? So depending on how much the market bounces, this will either be a B wave, right? Or this will just be a shallow fourth wave, which will come down to the downside. So that's what I have for QCOM. The next one I have is Crowd. So for Crowd, right, you can see that I have this as a wave 4, right? I think it has a shallow bounce. You can also see this trend line is held as previous resistance. Right now, it can use this as support to bounce up to 213 before we come down for the 5th wave, right? Before you have a wave 2, right? Wave 2 bounce and a 3, 4, 5. I think regardless, right? Crowd is not making it higher than 240, right? Even if this is the start of a wave 2, right, it will get shorted lower. Any bounce Crowd is going to have is going to get shorted. So depending on what your time frame and what kind of trader you are, right, you can play the shorter time frame, or if you prefer a much longer swing, right, I think if you buy like August or July puts on Crowd, right, every bounce keep going to get shorted, right? So I think 150 will get retested on Crowd, but you can see a bigger picture. My target on Crowd is 120 for the C wave, right? So I'm not bullish on Crowd by any means, but it is oversold, can have a small bounce before it comes back down, or even depending on however aggressive the bounce is, it will get shorted lower. So Crowd is definitely a short on every bounce for me at least. All right, the next one I have is JD. So for JD, again, it depends, right? I did put this on my Twitter, but so far it is looking very weak, and you can see it does have a massive gap to fill till 46, right? So if it starts to break, right, I have both bull and bear, right? As long as the low of 51 holds, I think it can retest 56 and 64 in the bull version. The ultra bull version is that this is a B wave, right? And then you're going to have a C wave to 74, but that is less probable. At this point, 56 and 64 in the bull case are kind of what I'm looking at. Alternatively, right, if JD starts to break 51, then you know it has a massive gap to fill at 46. So again, a very nice short to the downside. So you can play it, right? If the low of 50, right, where was this low? If the low of 50, 49 holds, right, if it just, breaks under the trend line and moves higher, you can see that fake trap and push, right? Then you can play calls to 64. However, if I know 51 was kind of an overkill because it's already breaking that, right? I'd say that 49.5, right? If it breaks 49.5, you can play puts to 46. So those are kind of the bull and bear versions on JD, right? Let's look at the last one, which is Boeing. Again, Boeing, it has very nice bull and bear. So far, you can see that this wave 2 I drawn here, I produced the perfect wave 3 to the downside, right? Alternatively, this can be a wave 2, but unless Boeing holds this low 173, right, it's not going to move higher for this 3, 4, 5. What is looking more likely is any small bounce. You can see this is the channel, right? So it is pretty much on life support. If it does not bounce off the channel, it is not going to have this bull wave to 215, right? If it starts, that's why you can see that I have puts below 170 and it does have a gap to fill at 160.2. However, right, if it does manage to hold this trend line and have a bounce, you can see that I have it only over 178 because I want to see that reversal, right? I want to see a strong reversal to prove that it can actually go up to 200. So those are the bull and bear versions on Boeing. So it's kind of what I have for the market, kind of, size up and see how much the market is going to bounce. Depending on that, right, you guys can understand whether it's just going to be a shallow bounce that's going to get shorted, right? Every bounce keeps getting shorted in that case, or whether it'll actually have an aggressive B wave bounce before we come back lower. So that's kind of my take on the market. Thank you so much. Trade safe, right? A lot of ERs. So yeah, thank you.